climate change is real. The problem at the moment is people are confused. They don't know whether they should not drink milk, become vegan, save plastics, put some solar in, buy a Tesla. They actually don't know. Because there's no target, there's no focus. Because there's no focus, there's no plan.
My name is Paul Winton. I work with private equity funds and corporates, helping them understand whether they should buy or build businesses.
In thinking about risk, it's a consideration.
I have a PhD in mechanical engineering and manufacturing and specialising in a field of applied statistics.
This is the West Antarctic ice shelf. It's 3 metres of sea level rise.
A couple of years ago I woke up one morning and read the paper, and I read about the losses that were coming from biodiversity and climate change, and I was just really struck by the misery that was going to cause a lot of people. And for me it was a bit of an awakening. I decided that this needed to be something that I was somehow participating in, that I was going to play a role in. I'm good at understanding markets, I'm good at understanding technology and engineering and physics. It makes sense for me to analyse where's New Zealand at, what can we do in New Zealand to make a meaningful change and what our emissions profile looks like.
The goalposts have moved massively. As the science is catching up, it is typically catching up in a way that tells us we actually need to move faster.
My analysis of what you need to do, what everybody needs to do, we need to reduce our reliance on petrol and diesel, and specifically we need to get rid of petrol and diesel over the next decade.
Problems with our potable water.
I've spoken with politicians, I've spoken to business leaders, I've spoken to leaders of communities. People want to know what to do. People want to do the right thing. And at the moment there's an absolute vacuum and clarity on what it is that I can do today that's going to make a meaningful contribution to this problem, this massive problem that we have in New Zealand, that is going to have a massive bearing on the next generation.
We're probably on track for roughly a 4.5 degree world by 2100.
The consequences of a 4 degrees world are the West Antarctic ice shelf melts, Greenland ice shelf melts. We bake in 10 metres plus worth of sea level rise, and we move towards a path where we have hundreds of millions of people globally displaced. In New Zealand we have potable water problems, we have massive shifts in the way our crops work. These are very, very big, very real problems that will happen within the next few decades unless we back off the current warming of the planet. Whenever you're looking at something like this, a system change, this is effectively a system change, then you want to figure out what you can actually change. You can't do everything, you've got to really prioritise for efforts. There's a saying that every little bit counts, but that's really misguided. That gives you a sense that you're actually having impact, but in actual fact, just using a keep cup is not going to have impact. You've got to focus on the things that really move the dial. So I looked into what are the things that we can credibly move on a 10-year timeline, because this is all about pulling 60% over 10 years out to 2030. And if you look at that, ag's really hard to move. 1 billion trees, that's going to give us some of it. There's a few initiatives that are underway at the moment. We're already shutting down coal, we're already changing the way we do waste. I think that Fonterra is going to be embarrassed out of using coal to dry milk powder over a decade. That gives you, across those two things, about 2/3 of where we need to get to. And that leaves one thing, and that one thing is road transportation. My analysis shows that in New Zealand, if you want to have impact, you can do that really only through 3 things. Get rid of petrol and diesel use in your day-to-day life, talk to your neighbours, and vote and be political. Get out there and make it really, really clear to your politicians that they need to raise the bar on emissions.
There are a lot of things that you can do that don't require you to buy a $150,000 electric car. And what we now need to do is to get the councils and the actors, Auckland Transport for example, to start to put this sort of thing, bake this into their budgets.
The really exciting thing about road transportation is that the solutions already exist around the world today. We know how to accelerate the uptake of EVs. It's been done in Norway. We know how to get higher occupancy in cars. It's been done around the world. We know how to get more people onto buses, onto trains. We know what micro-mobility looks like. We know how to change cities so that they are easier to get around. And in making them easier to get around, we also reduce our emissions profiles. So the exciting thing about transport is all of the solutions are out there today. We need to take a pick and mix of them and deploy them here in New Zealand.
Only 20% of the population are inclined to do anything meaningful, incremental to what they're doing at the moment. And those people are confused. And that's why there's a need to get a messaging campaign out there that says, forget about everything else. Transport and politics. We can do things today. You can do things today at a personal level that have changed things, and you can do things today at a professional level in the decisions you're making that change this as well.